Alright, this is going to be a test on my 12mm adhesive-backed vinyl. So I've redesigned the artwork a little bit here to use a little bit wider font. And I'm just going to use transfer tape. I'm not going to use those little tags to hold things together. So I'm going to print this out on some of that vinyl and get her going. Alright, I just got the cutting done. I put it on the same 7mm setting I had for the heavy mylar without the backing. It looks like it came out okay. Some of the pieces did start to come out on their own. So I may tweak it down a little bit so I can just weed it manually. But this isn't too bad for the first try. Alright, I just got done weeding it in about 10 minutes. These letters with that width seem to work out good. The adhesive holding down the vinyl to the adhesive backing is not that strong. This is kind of loose in there. So are these centers. So I really don't want to add those little tags to hold those pieces in there, because you have to deal with those later. You'd like to be able to have the adhesive holding these pieces on to be strong enough to hold it to the surface that you're going to be putting this on. And then these smaller letters, which is a little different font than I used up here, the centers definitely didn't hold up. They came out with the letter, and it would have been very hard to peel those apart and then stick them back on there and have them stay. So that's a problem. I'm going to have to redo this line using a different font with wider lettering. Maybe use that same font and cut down the number of letters. Over here, everything was good except the design has some very thin areas, which obviously are going to be vulnerable to getting sandblasted off. This is that you can tell this one just is in there loose, so like I said, the adhesive holding on the back, holding on the vinyl to the backing is not very good on the stuff I bought. So the point is, you might have to modify artwork to avoid any of these thin areas in your artwork to give you a better chance of having it survive the sandblasting process. Alright, so this was the first one I started with here. I decided I wasn't even going to attempt to use it. So I redesigned the artwork a little bit. Kind of made the white areas fatter. Got rid of some of the small white areas. So it was pretty easy to weed out in big pieces. So that's looking better. This came out good, and the numbers came out good. The biggest problem I have is this A is just barely hanging on there. Those R's are okay, but I don't trust any of those centers are going to stay together. So I think I'm going to put the transfer tape on it, get the main piece attached, and then I'm going to independently have to glue those centers in a little bit better onto the stone. So we'll see how that goes. Well, it's looking really good. I didn't have to put any 3M spray down like I did on the first few trials. It looks nice and clean on here, but I think I'm gonna put some crazy glue to hold in a few of these pieces, because I just know that they're just going to come loose and all this work will be a little ruined. So let's give that a try. Alright, I put some of this medium viscosity CA on the areas where it looks like it may lift on these letters. We'll get some time for that to cure, and we'll take it to the sandblasting cabinet. The idea is some of this, since the stone is porous, some of this will flow underneath the vinyl and hopefully hold it in place. One other trick is to use some micro balloon filler, kind of accelerate. So I'm going to try that. That pretty much immediately causes this to cure. Well, that went better than I expected, but there's still problems. I think the tree went real good. I didn't have anything kind of lifting up. This W you probably saw, that's why I quit. The second half of the front end of that W peeled off, and you can see the edges of the stencil is kind of beat up. I know I got kind of a harsher media in there than I probably should. So by changing that, I think it would allow the stencil to survive a little bit better. Then you can see where the little brown spots are on these letters. That's the result of the CA glue that I put in there, and that kind of tells me that if it's brown like that, it never really got sandblasted through. So that's not necessarily the best solution, but I think I'll take this off. I was hoping I could kind of paint through it. Maybe I'll do this lower lettering by painting, and then go from there. I decided I just would use a little blade here to kind of clean out where that dark areas were, and then I got one coat of top coat, clear coat, that'll help seal the edges, and then we'll paint the color. Well, overall it looks okay. It got pluses and minuses. I definitely there was basically no etching in here, so there was a problem, and just generally speaking the sandblasting didn't go nearly as far. I think I was just being a little cautious because I was worried about the stencil coming off, and but this tree definitely looks a little bit better now that it's got a little bit fatter spaces. This font, which I thought was going to be okay, still left pretty thin lines, so it's really difficult to fill it in with paint. But I like the fact I didn't have to wash off a bunch of adhesive. So I had mentioned that this A was really loose when it was attached to its backing, but I think maybe after I had the backing off, the adhesive that was still on this little piece might be able to stick to the stone okay on its own without adding any of that crazy glue. So anyway, there's another attempt. I'll have to think about what to do next. I do have some 150 grit and a little smaller nozzle, and apparently if you go up in grit number, you can actually go deeper, believe it or not, when you're doing your etching without destroying your template or your stencil. So maybe I'll try that next. Thanks for watching.